This is Charm's Canadian Love Map, the show that uncovers incredible Canadian love stories.
Tell people you love them. If we all amplify the love that we have, we can really change the world around them.
I love love.
Hi, I'm Nancy Regan, your host. And thanks to Charm Diamond Centers, we've spent nearly 10 seasons sharing the stories that shape us. This season, we're digging even deeper, chasing the spark behind every connection, the unexpected reunions, the little moments, and the bold leaps of faith.
In order to have world peace, or even a thought of it, we all have to work together.
What I discovered early in life was that giving and helping and contributing is, in a funny way, it's quirky. So I'll tell you, someone's walking down the street on a sidewalk and they fall. Immediately, the 10 people around them will help them. So it's built into us. It's innately in us to help others.
Hi, everybody. Nancy here. I have a real treat for you today. It's an episode with a difference, but it is all about love and the way my friend Ed McHugh embodies it in his extraordinary approach to community, connection, and contribution. I promise you will be inspired and entertained by his story and his relationship with giving. Ed McHugh, welcome to the Canadian Love Map podcast.
Very happy and thrilled to be here. Honored.
I'm very happy that you said yes when I asked, as quickly as that. And you didn't even ask a lot of questions. And I am going to tell you right now that this is not so much about you as it is about contribution.
Okay.
This podcast.
Okay.
Because when I saw your post where you talked about the fact that you've been refereeing for over 50 years, I just thought, in a world that is so connected online yet disconnected, humans feel more disconnected than ever. I feel like you are an emblem of connection. You're a bright, shining sign that says, be connected, be involved with your community, give back. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation.
Sure.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with giving?
Sure. Let's start with giving. And I'll go to a place that you wouldn't expect me to go to. I'm from Newfoundland, Grand Falls, Windsor, exactly. And I went to an all-boys Catholic school run by the Irish Christian Brothers. Mm-hmm. And the brothers, unfortunately, got themselves into some serious trouble, and the order has disbanded only because of under 1%. That's the hard part. Mm-hmm. 99% of what they did in Newfoundland and Toronto and Vancouver was amazing. Those guys gave. And that's where I learned how to give. They opened the gym for us on weekdays, weeknights, weekends. They helped us with our student, like the normal stuff that you have tough time finding recruiting teachers to do. So the Christian Brothers did that, and I watched it for 4 years, and I loved it. In fact, I considered becoming a Christian Brother, but I decided it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. And I didn't get it from my parents, though. I got it from them.
I'm fascinated by that, and it's such an interesting conversation to have. Because, my husband had an uncle who was a priest who he loved dearly. And he's always wrestled with the fact that because there were some really bad priests, it kind of marred all the others, and including the really good ones. Yeah. So that's, that's...
yeah. And it continued really on for me, actually, in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. When I went to St. FX University, I just saw it again in people, in staff, in professors, in the clergy that were on campus, in the cafeteria staff. My roommate and I actually had dinner one night with a lady who punches our tickets at the door. Like, when you look back, you go, wow. Like, the culture there also was the same. And so that's when I decided, I didn't really decide, I just evolved into a person that just looks for ways to help people out.
So you came out of St. FX and out of school in Newfoundland with this real sense of contribution, needing to give back. Why did you feel it was important at a young age?
What I discovered early in life was that giving and helping and contributing is, in a funny way, it's quirky. And in a funny way, it's selfish. Because any human being knows, I'll tell you, someone's walking down the street on a sidewalk and they fall. Immediately, the 10 people around them will help them. So it's built into us. It's innately in us to help others, okay? But it's got to get nurtured by somebody or some mentors or some people to bring it out in you. So I was fortunate at a very early age to see people giving. And the reason I say it's quirky and ironic is that it makes you feel good. Okay, so giving, and funny, it sounds like giving would be all just giving, but you give, and yeah, there's an essence to that. You give of your time, your treasure, whatever, and your talent. But as you do it, you feel great, and you go, wow, ooh. You know, when you do something and you touch something or you experience something, you go, ooh, that felt good, and I somehow that felt good, and it started right around grade 8. So and it's continued on.
How did you give in those early years when you were a teenager or 20-something?
You know what? I was very involved in Cubs as a young person and was then helping out with younger Cubs. In my group, I was probably of the guys I hung around with, I was probably the only guy who babysat. Now, there was money attached to that also. Mm-hmm. But you just recognize, you start to just do little things. I remember shoveling the driveway next door for the family next door because there was something going on. And I remember doing it for free, and I remember feeling good. So, yeah, it's funny how it just resonates, and then it sticks. Then it becomes part of your identity, who you are, and where you want to take your life.
You know, when you say that, I think that I recently gave advice to a young person who was talking about anxiety. And I said, I think there are lots of ways to seek help, and it's great if you are talking about it. But I think the best thing you can do for anxiety is to help somebody else.
I totally agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very therapeutic.
Get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Stop focusing on your own problems and help somebody with their problems. And all of a sudden, boom, you feel better.
Absolutely you do. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Okay, when did basketball refereeing start for you?
Well, this goes back again to the Christian Brothers. We did not have a gym, okay, from grades primary to 7. And so when we got to grade 8, we finally had a gym, and these guys were basketball nuts, okay? And so they decided that they were going to form this league, this Sunday basketball league. And so if you could choose to play, coach, or ref. So I played it in a couple of years, but then I decided I wanted to ref. So I started in grade 10. I was 15. And I started to referee this Sunday afternoon basketball. And I enjoyed it. It's hard to say. People, a lot of people have varied opinions on officials in sport. But I had an easy beginning. And a side note here, and I'll come back. In refereeing and in sport generally, the number that's tossed around in the officiating world is most sports lose 80% of their new officials in the first 2 years.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Okay, and
talk about anxiety.
I know, and it's all about the behavior on the field, in the gym, in the hockey arena, wherever, and it's about how they get treated.
And in the stands.
Yeah. So I was lucky. I got off to a very sheltered start. And so then it continued on. When I went to St. FX to Nantigonish, I continued to referee. When I went to Western in London, Ontario, I continued to referee. And I came back here, and it's just every October, it's just something I do. And as long as my hips and my knees hold out, I'm going to keep doing it. But like I said, it started back in grade 10 with my teachers.
Can you even think about the number of people you have met, both athletes and parents and other refs through this game?
I was also lucky enough to be president of Basketball Nova Scotia for
of course you were.
7 years. Anyway, but I tell you, that was the one volunteer position that exposed me to such a broad spectrum of people. I remember being at a convocation at Dalhousie, and out came a gentleman named Fred Fountain. And I said, Fred, all gowned up. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm the chancellor. I went, of course you are. To me, he was Fred, who coached the St. Margaret's Bay Slam that I coached against for 2 or 3 years. He never ever mentioned that he was the chancellor of Dal, and I teach there part-time.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to meet.
And he's an incredible philanthropist on the east coast of Canada.
He's an unbelievable philanthropist. So the breadth of people I've met, the interesting, funny thing for me is I've now refereed grandparents, parents, and their children. I've refereed 3 generations now, which is really quirky when that happens, because it's a hoot when I walk in the gym, because the grandfather or grandmother whom I've refed 40 years ago starts to laugh and says, oh my goodness, you're still doing this?
He's still ticking. You're the ever-ready bunny.
Yeah, that's right. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess that makes you the old man of basketball in Canada.
I'd be pretty close, I guess. I don't know if there's anyone in Nova Scotia. There are some guys, actually a couple of guys who are older than me still reffing, but I think I started before they did. So I'm probably the longest serving referee in Nova Scotia. And I'd be pretty well up there across the country at this point. You know.
Has it made you rich? I thought I'd get a laugh on that.
No, it doesn't. Obviously, we get paid a stipend, but you start to calculate the membership fees we pay, the uniforms we buy, the gas we burn. There's nobody doing this for the money.
Of course.
Nobody.
Yeah, no, I was looking for the laugh on that one for sure.
And you got it.
Yeah, it's more of an honorarium, really, isn't it?
It really is. Now, it can add up to a nice little sum of money in the spring. And if we go on a trip, that usually helps fund our trip somewhere. Or a lot of folks use it to pay their golf fees for the summer or whatever. So the nice thing about our structure is we get paid at the end of the season. So we don't get paid game by game. So when we get it all at once in March or April. So it's a tidy little sum of money. So if you forget the gas expense, you forget you forget everything, you go, okay. And now in our house, by the way, I have a deal with my dear spouse, Shelley. She gets 1/3 of whatever I get.
She should get half.
I know she don't.
I'm going to be her agent.
Don't you do that. Shelley, when you hear that, we're not talking about it.
By the way, he calls Shelley MDS.
Yes.
My dear spouse.
I stole that from a guy named Terry Botten. Terry Botten used to be the general manager of the Sheraton here in town, and he was my client. I loved Terry. And he always called his wife the lovely Ginny. And I loved that. There was something in that I really liked. And I said, you know what? So I came up with my dear spouse, Shelley. And I've been using that now for 20 plus years. And people refer to her when they meet her now as MDS.
So she takes a cut because she puts up with you?
Pretty much, yeah. Or the fact that sometimes, remember, we raised 2 children, so there'd be nights, and Shelley was a shift working nurse, so there'd be nights that at say 7 o'clock, just at bedtime, I say, oops, got to go, got a 7:30 game, and I'd get the hairy eyeball a bit, but off I go. And I tried my best to always work around that, but there are times when you're needed and you go, and so I figure she deserves at least 1/3 of this.
I'm actually going to sandwich in this little mention about Shelley right now, since you're talking about her and the fact that she was a nurse. Is she retired now?
Shelley sucks at retiring. Shelley retired 3 times.
Didn't take.
No, most of her career she spent working with premature babies, intensive care.
Well, that's where I was going, because I had a baby. My third child was my daughter, who was in the NICU for a month. Yeah. And Shelley just made such an impression on me then by how incredibly caring and compassionate and loving she was.
And that's Shelley's nature. She's very caring, compassionate, very giving. Her taste in men's a little weak, but she gets beyond that.
Can't blame her.
But she retired in 2016 she also ran what was called a follow-up clinic for a number of years, where they check the progress mentally and physically of premature babies, really premature babies. And they track that from a research point of view and a care point of view. Then she got a research project back at the IWK. So she went back for a couple of years and worked on that. And then, to her credit, then March 17th, 18th, 2020 hit, and Shelley went back to work the very first morning. She said, I got to go. And off she went. In fact, the only cars she met on her way to the IWK that morning were police cars. It was almost like an episode of The Twilight Zone. And she drove to work, and we were both scared. This is day one.
Of course.
This is day one.
Well, I was going to say, it gives me an image when you say that of the towers on 9/11.
Yes.
And people, the heroes that were running up the stairs
Yeah.
when everybody else was running down the stairs.
Yeah.
And that's the equivalent, to be saying, okay, I'm going back into healthcare
Yeah.
when everyone else was locking their doors and
Yeah.
staying home. And rightly
No, I give her
so.
full credit. And she'd come home every evening and she would undress just inside the front door and we'd throw all the clothes downstairs into the laundry room. And we did that every day. And then we thought it would last 3 or 4 months and it ended up being 3.5 years. And then she retired. So she's retired 3 times.
Have you always shared that sense of responsibility for others and community?
Well, Shelley did it in her job more than I did. I evolved into a teacher, a post-secondary teacher, after a career in business. Shelley did it mostly through her job. If you look at our household, she's done a lot. She's been with me in Special Olympics. She's been with me when we divided up divisions for minor basketball. She was at the kitchen table with me trying to figure out which team should play whom. So she's been involved. But at the same time, in a household like ours, especially when one person works shift work, you can't have both of you out there all the time. So Shelley's major value in life is family. We have 2 new grandchildren, and they just light up her life. And we've just gone through, like most people in my age, we've gone through a few deaths in our families, and that was hard. Yet, as Shelley calls them, the grandchildren come along. She goes, they're like a salve. They're like a salve you put on a wound.
Yes.
And so
Is it true that you enjoy the taillights just as much as the headlights? Someone said that to my parents when they were going to be grandparents for the first time. Oh, you're gonna love the headlights, but you're also gonna love the taillights.
The taillights are pretty neat. And actually, both of them are in daycare, but we take them each 1 day a week, just to stay in touch with them, because they're 2 and 4, and they evolve and they change weekly. They change sometimes daily, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to be a grandparent. Wonderful. But the beauty is, at the end of the day, you pass them off to somebody else.
That's it. They have
to do when Shelley worked shifts at night, and I had the 2 hours, and hours are 14 months apart. I always had my B's: bath, bum, bottle, bed, and if it went really well, beer. And that was my formula for getting 2 young children to bed. Not beer for them.
They didn't get the beer.
No.
Oh, okay. Another B. Let's go back to basketball. This is my kind of conversation. It's all over the map. Okay. This is how my brain works.
Okay.
What is it that you have loved about reffing basketball?
Getting to know some people very well, and getting to be able to deal with some very respectful and giving people, especially the coaches. You talk about money. It costs money to volunteer. Everybody who volunteers out there will tell you that they've paid for something. Okay, so I think meeting the coaching and having the community. When someone passes away within that community, everyone is there: the coaches, the players, the referees, and we're all one sense of community. I never call it the family of basketball. That gets a little too wonky for me. But I do call it the community of basketball.
I think about Wade Smith when you say that, who was an incredible giver himself.
Yeah.
He was a basketball star at St. FX, St. Francis Xavier.
And Athlete of the Year for the university.
Yes, and he was probably all Canadian.
Yes, he was.
But he was certainly a superstar human as well. He became the principal of Citadel High School, biggest high school in Halifax. And he was just an extraordinary person who died way too young.
Way too young. That when that happened, we were all in shock. There was no doubt about it. Wade, had a stellar career at X, contributed back, did a lot, came here, rose to the top of his ranks, had a very tough job to be a principal of that school. Not an easy job at all. He handled it well. Students respected him. Teachers respected him. He was respected and loved. And in life, it's hard to get both sometimes. But he was a well-revered human being who just left us way too early.
Mm-hmm. What has kept you coming back season after season to the court? Like, have there been times that you think, oh, the game's changed a lot, or the attitude has changed, and yet you keep coming back?
Yeah, it's refereeing any sport. It's physical. One of the biggest beauties for me is it keeps me active. It keeps me running.
It's a workout.
Yeah, it is. And there are games. It is a real workout. So that's good. That's a big reason for me. Number two is seeing the people again and interacting with the people, and that's been happening now over the last few weeks as we get back in the gyms and you see people you haven't seen since last February, March. The refereeing community itself. We're a pretty tight group, and we have to be. We absolutely have to be. And the challenge, it's challenging. And I'm biased, but I think basketball, of all the sports, is the hardest one to referee because it's got more moving parts than any other sport. Hockey is tough, and soccer can be tough.
Yeah.
But basketball's got latitude, verticality, 10 players in a confined space, and there's always contact. And the overriding principle in basketball, by the way, is basically advantage, disadvantage. So you might see a game where someone actually gets hit, and probably gets hit right in front of the referee. Mm-hmm. But there's no whistle. But you know what? All of a sudden, a player continues on and makes a beautiful hoop, makes a layup, and gets the 2 points. As a good referee, you'd let that little hit go because you're going to take away a basket. Now, sometimes what you might do is if the contact occurs, the shot goes and it didn't go, then you make your decision that says, okay, that contact did make that player lose. So I always think in any sport, whatever sport it is, a late whistle, if you've seen it, and a late whistle is better than no whistle. And as I tell young referees all the time, when you got a major collision out here, have something. I don't care what you got. But come out when you've got a major collision, a major problem. It's hard though sometimes because sometimes there is no fault and players just collide because they're in a restricted area. And you got to go to did the contact create an advantage or a disadvantage? And if it didn't, it's not a foul. And that's the hard part because the uneducated fan doesn't quite understand that part.
Do you have a preference for kids basketball over university basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Kids basketball.
Oh, really?
And even not at the top levels, lower levels.
Oh,
mid
I
levels,
love it.
Mid to lower levels.
You've coached games you've reffed games that I've coached.
Yes, I
way
have.
back in the day.
Way back, yeah. And and so it's about just behaving the right way and just about getting to it.
And you're giving something. You may only have 2 kids of your own, but you have given a lot of your time to thousands of kids over the years.
Well, I've done 4,800 games, so I'm trying to get to 5,000. I'm 67 now, so I still, like I said, as long as I'm still kicking. But I wouldn't even want to estimate the number of players I've refereed. It's in the tens of thousands, easily.
This podcast is made possible by the support of Charm Diamond Centers. As a proudly Canadian-owned company, they care deeply about shining a light on love. So when people hear those kinds of numbers, they think, well, that must be his main outlet for giving, but they would be so wrong. Can we talk about Special Olympics?
Sure we can.
Yeah.
It's my favorite topic in the world.
Oh, it is. And tell me why.
It's what I call human nature unvarnished. Mm-hmm. There's no games played, there's no hidden agendas. What you get is what you get. And, you might get something like, hey, there's something stuck in your nose. No other human being, you know what I mean? You'll hear it all. Yeah. The very first time we did it in the year 2000, Shelley and I showed up actually to give out. Actually, what happened was an email came around work and it said, we're looking for help tomorrow at St. Mary's University, Special Olympics Summer Games. And something I said I would always do, but I'd never done, So I called Shelley and I said, all right, my dear spouse, what about tomorrow? She goes, my calendar's open. I said, well, do you want to join me at Special Olympics? She said, sure. So we went. And in a funny, strange way, we got sent to the awards tent where we started to give out bronze, silver, and gold. And the announcer was a guy named Barry Bransfield, whom, coincidentally, I had recruited to come to St. FX in the early 80s when I worked for St. FX as a recruiter for 3 years. And he was the head boy at Rothsay Collegiate in Rothsay.
St. John.
Yeah. And we rarely got a student out of there. And we got Barry to come to St. FX, which I was thrilled about. Anyway, Barry was doing the announcing of the medals, but something came up in his family and he had to leave at noon and he looked around with the microphone and he went, here, take this.
Ed.
And 25 years later, I'm still doing it. Shelley is still organizing the medals. We've been a team for that long period of time. I've been on the board. I've chaired the board. And what we do mainly, what I love doing, is announcing their medals. And what I've been told by other people is that I make every single Special Olympic athlete, when they get a medal, feel very individual and very special. And I work on that. So I'm involved now. I MC some dinner events. I MC some opening ceremonies. We don't have closing, and of course I wear all of my. Then these, you got to understand, these Special Olympics athletes. A lot of them live in homes that they're cared for. Okay, so on Saturday nights, Hockey Night in Canada comes on. They are huge hockey fans, almost to an athlete.
Yes,
and so I wear all of my Toronto Maple Leaf gear every time I MC anything, and I get the boos and the heckles, and I get the athletes coming up, waving their Montreal Canadiens jersey. And I just love being around them. They're just so real. I have a number of them are friends on Facebook. And it's interesting there because sometimes they'll make a comment and then someone might, the world of social media, someone will then pounce on their comment. So I'll then delete it right away. And then I'll send a private message to that person and say, by the way, that's one of my Special Olympics friends. Okay. So, and they go, okay, sorry about that. And so, I just love being around them. There goes back to my thing about giving makes you feel good, or in itself makes you feel, it's selfish because it makes you feel good. I just love the authenticity. I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
Can you tell me a story or a memory from Special Olympics that just really made an imprint on your heart?
Oh yeah. I think it was even the first or second year Shelley and I were doing this. And there was a girls' race, okay? And this girl beat another girl just by a nose, just by a hair. And the other girl, they got to the tent, and the other girl started to cry. And the girl who'd won went over to the other girl and started to console her and say, look, you'll get your turn. You'll get your medal. It's coming. Your turn is coming. I had to wait my turn to get my medal, but you're coming, okay? And I can't remember if this is gold and silver or what. It might have even been bronze and not a medal. I think it might have been bronze and not a medal. And she was consoling and consoling and consoling. Okay. 5 minutes later, we have the men's race, okay, the male race. They come in and they're talking away, and one guy says, well, I almost beat you, and the other male athlete, I kicked your ass. I beat you by this much. And he holds his hands out about 6 feet apart. And the difference, we were both just lost it over the difference between female and male behavior, even as Special Olympians sometimes.
Isn't that funny?
Oh, yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. You said unvarnished. I love that. There is no mask.
No.
With people participating in Special Olympics.
No.
And my nephew, Patrick, has competed many times. And one time he has Down syndrome and is on the spectrum. And he started on a curve to do 200. And his dad said, I don't know if this is he's never started on the curve before.
That's right.
And when everybody else started, he just stayed put.
Right.
And eventually, after the race was finished, everybody else had finished, he decided he was going to start walking. Well, he walked by the stands and everyone stood up and just cheered and clapped. And he never looked prouder in his life. And he walked over that finish line. He was a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually was there for that event. I had the microphone.
Oh.
So now the hard part as the sort of the MC, you got to keep it going now for the next little while, saying things that are interesting. But it was that was a very memorable race. I'll never forget that one as long as I live.
Okay, so we've touched on basketball and Special Olympics.
Yeah.
I want to go to the tree.
This is going to be mentioned at my funeral. I've had a wonderful, fun life. Okay,
you have a friend named Charlie.
I do.
Tell us about Charlie.
Okay. So we moved into our house in Bedford, Nova Scotia in August of 1999. And then we get settled in. And then we're there about a year or so. And I used to walk out to the back of our property. And there's a Highway 102, which connects basically the Halifax to the Halifax Airport, out towards Lower Sackville, Nova Scotia. So we're about 800 feet from that highway. So I would walk out to the top of the cliff and just watch the cars go by. And then one evening in November of the year 2000, there's this one scrawny little tree on the edge of a cliff. It grows in a rock. There's no soil back there because where we live is very rocky. And
it's a great metaphor for resilience.
It's just the only thing keeping him alive. He's about 6 foot tall at that point, is water and sunshine. And I looked at him and I said, you need some loving. So I got my dad's old lights, and if we're old enough, if you remember the Christmas outdoor lights from years ago, they were painted, and now a lot of them were cracked, and the light would shine through, and they were, they're not like today's lights at all. And so I took my dad's old lights, and I went out to Charlie. Now there might have been a glass of rum involved that first year, okay? And I wrapped the lights around him, and I ran 4 long extension cords back to my house. And I walked back out, and I just started to giggle because where he's situated on the cliff, it's at the intersection of another road called the Hammonds Plains Road. There's no houses near there at all, none. So there's this scrawny little tree with these lights. And I had a friend of mine that night, the first night I lit it, called me on his cell phone. He's coming down the hill, and he calls me. He goes, "That's your tree, isn't it?"
He just knew.
That's my tree. And he started to laugh. Anyway, we put it out there, and it became, it's become a beacon of hope for a lot of people. I've had so much feedback. And so I just love doing it. And it just made me smile and made my heart warm. And so the next year, I'm in church, and Moya Farrell, who used to be on what was called C100, which is now called
I know
Move.
her.
Yeah, you'd know Moya.
She's great.
Moya came up after church, and we were chatting away about things, and I said, I hear Peter likes my tree. And she goes, because Peter Harrison would be driving in by the tree on his way to the morning shift
Her
at like
co-host,
3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And Moya goes, "That's your tree?" She goes, "Peter is infatuated with this tree." She goes, "Let's talk." So we got talking, and then Peter says, "Next year, we want to do an official lighting of this tree on C100. I went, "Sure."
That's great.
So in the year 2001, at around 6:30 in the morning, and it's happening ever since, like this Sunday night, Charlie's being lit. And so we've been
And this
doing
will
it.
air, actually. This will be, by the time you're listening to this,
Yes.
Anyone in the audience, this will have already happened.
Yes, it's going to happen on the 20th. Will have happened on the 23rd. So it's evolved into this thing. So now about 60 to 70 people will come to my home on 6 o'clock Sunday evening. It's always on a Sunday evening because to me that feels like the least cluttered evening of the week for people. And we will get tons of flashlights because we're going out through some woods and rocks and we'll go out and we'll sing Christmas carols. Of course, we'll sing "Oh Christmas Tree." The youngest child or the youngest children will get to actually light Charlie. Okay, so my 2 grandchildren have lit it in the last few years, and so now I now have kids who are 22 and 23 years old coming who actually lit the tree in its early years. And so we light it, and then we come back to our house, to our deck, and we have hot chocolate and cookies, and just generally it's a neighborhood event. Anyone. I've invited a lot of people through the years, and I tell people if you're invited one year, you're invited every year. Okay, so don't rely on an email from me or don't just come. And if you're not sure when it is, send me a note. I usually do Grey Cup Sunday, but the Grey Cup was a week earlier this year, and it also would have conflicted with the Parade of Lights in Bedford last Sunday evening. So the November 23rd at 6 o'clock, and then I light him.
I consider this an invitation, by the way,
Absolutely, you
for
can
the
come
record.
anytime. Absolutely. And I will tell you, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. Just on a tangent, Christmas has shifted in my lifetime. When I was younger, you put up your tree sometime between the 15th and the 20th of December, and everything stayed up until January the 6th, okay? It has shifted way forward. Now to the point that a lot of people, and a lot of stores especially, but even people, once November 12th comes, once Remembrance Day goes by, people there's a house across from me that going to the Bedford Parade the other night, my grandson looked across the street at Andrew Gervais' house and went, "Wow." I just went, wow. There's nothing more beautiful than a 4-year-old
Yes.
going, wow.
The eyes just
But Andrew's done such a
wide.
great job that he just went, wow. So, anyway, so we'll light it. And then I light it usually around a month before Christmas, so the 23rd. And I keep it lit until what I call Old Christmas Day, January 6th. And it's in my calendar as an appointment forever. And that at 11 o'clock on January 6th, I go out and I say goodbye to Charlie. I may have had a little glass of rum too also, and I unplug him for another year, and off we go.
And first of all, what is the feeling for you when you're standing there with the 60 or so people and lighting it? If you can describe it even.
I feel like Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life, and that scene in his living room that the movie ends. It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorite movies of all time. And trivia, I don't know if you know this, but Ernie and Bert from Sesame Street are named after the 2 policemen that are in the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Did not know
How's
that.
that for a little piece of trivia?
Well, and I have a daughter who's nicknamed Zuzu.
Oh, okay. All right.
Zuzu's Bell.
Yes, absolutely. So, So anyway, there's.
Wow. So you feel just an immense sense of gratitude?
Yeah, and as you age, I remember my parents, my dad feeling especially, as your friends pass and you start becoming the only person. I'm entering into a phase now where I've lost some close people. So I feel when it comes around to that event each year, I feel lucky. Very lucky that I'm still with it. I'm still good and healthy, and that people will show up for this silly little tree. Side note: Charlie's now about 12 feet high. By the way, little Evans, he's doubled in size in 25 years, and recently
All that love.
And I recently had some trees cut down on my property by an arborist, a guy named Colin. And actually, he emailed me or texted me the other day and says, "Look, Ed, I've got some equipment." Because what Shelley and I do is we go out to the edge of the cliff. There have been years I've been holding my dear spouse by her belt loops while she's leaning over the edge, putting the lights on. And my dad always used to call and say, "Are you back from the cliff yet?" And I go, "Yes, we're back, Dad."
He was worried.
Oh, yeah, which was out of character of my father. So this guy at the tree company is going to come, and he's going to come help us actually put the taller lights up with his equipment, which is going to be a huge help to us.
That's beautiful. And obviously, it's not about the tree.
No, not
It's
at all.
about so much more.
There's a post on Facebook this week about the tree. Some guy put it on the Nova Scotia Traditions inside of Facebook. And people, the comments, I responded to every single one of them, were truly heartwarming, truly real. People said, I've had a crappy day at work. I take that turn and it's raining and I look up there and your little tree just makes my day. It brightens me as I go home and I look forward to it and it just makes me feel happy.
Yeah, and that's why it was actually on the national news at some point.
It was. So I got phone calls from, I remember I went to the Shoveler basketball tournament at Dalhousie and the Concordia coach, John Doerr, was there. And he goes, "For God's sakes, Ed," I was sitting in my living room in Montreal. "What comes on my big screen but your ugly mug?" He says, "You'll do anything for it to be a center of attention, won't you?"
Oh, my
I said, "Well, no, John, I said, that tree for years." I said, "The tree was anonymous. Nobody knew who did it for years." But eventually word got out. And like I said, it'll probably be mentioned at my funeral, which was never its intention. And another dilemma down the road will be, whoever buys our house.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Do I have to put that in as a covenant that they have to keep lighting Charlie afterwards? Because it does take a bit of energy. And in the early days, when we used my dad's lights, the electricity meter would just start zooming. The good news is Shelley and I split our bills and she pays the power bill. So anyway, but now we have actually Nova Scotia Power 1 year called up, Tony Falcon's called from Nova Scotia Power and said, "Ed, we'd like to donate some free LED lights to your tree." And I said, "Oh my goodness." And so he ran them out that day, came home, we transferred the lights over. They're double the number because they're not as bright as the other ones, but the power bill has gone down significantly.
Amazing. Well, you deserve that. You've mentioned a few friends' names, and I would like to invoke the name of a friend of mine who has passed, and his name was J. Bell Redbird. He was an amazing Indigenous artist, Ojibwe from Northern Ontario. And when I interviewed him years ago, he died at the age of 52, and I only met him several months before, but we were instant kindred spirits. And at the end of our day together, I hugged his wife, and then I went to hug him, and he put his hands up in front of him to say, "No, stop." And I thought, oh gosh, maybe culturally he doesn't hug, I've always since then said, "Are you accepting hugs?"
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, no, because everybody, when they go to hug, they lean to the left. He said, no. Heart to heart, always
really?
heart to heart.
Oh, wow.
And ever since then, I only hug leaning to the right, heart to heart. And I've told so many people that story.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, you are a personification of heart to heart.
Well, I hope that, when this journey is over, that I've made a difference. The hardest part is sometimes you got to keep it in check. And because, when you throw a pebble into the water, the ripples go, and it depends on how far you want your ripples to go. I always thought I'd run politically. I did run once. I ran for council for Bedford. I lost out to a man who was extremely popular and very competent. And that's the only run I've taken. So I've decided that I'm going to make my mark in other ways. And my hope is at the end of this journey that I will have made my mark.
Holy cow. You have made your mark in so many ways. That's why I asked you here today. You are the greatest example I know of contribution, community, and connection. And Maya Angelou had a beautiful quote. People may forget, it's to some effect. These are not the exact words, perhaps. People may forget what you said. They may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And when you think about people looking back and remembering you after you have gone, how do you want them to think, this is how he made me feel?
Hopefully I want them to feel that I made them feel respected and appreciated. Respect and appreciation is huge for me. And the thing I haven't mentioned, the cornerstone in all of this is family, okay? Shelley and I have had a great marriage, good run, 42 years at this point, and been with each other for 45 years. We have two wonderful children who are, Kate's working at St. Mary's, running the Accessibility Center for students with disabilities so they can do their exams. My son is a professional poker player and does extremely well at it, very well,
Really?
extremely well. So the cornerstone is, that's where you start from, okay? And then you build from there. You got to make sure that's taken care of. That's the core. And of course now my in-law son and my in-law daughter, and of course the two grandchildren. So that's the cornerstone. And then you decide from there how far do you want your ripples to go. And at one point I wanted my ripples. When I was a kid, I always thought I was going to be Prime Minister of Canada. I actually did. But as you age, you realize there's a couple of factors here that are going to stand in my way of doing that. And you certainly wisen up. And other people say, why would you want to do that? I see politics as a place where you can make a difference and you can help. But over time, I've been convinced by myself and by others that there are perhaps other streams and perhaps better streams to do things, and you've done some similar things in your life. You were very high profile, and you stepped away from that, and I've admired that in you, and because that's not in everyone, especially in the world you were in. That's at times an addiction, and people will stay there because they enjoy it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what you did, in my view, was amazing. And I actually, I applaud for what you've done and positive difference you've been trying to make since you've been on another very interesting and contributive journey.
Well, you've been a good role model.
Oh.
And I am just in awe of how you show up in the world, to use my language.
Use your language, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Thank you for this rich conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been my honor.
Thanks so much for listening. If you have loved this episode, then why not subscribe, rate, and review Charm's Canadian Love Map? Do you have a love story that you're dying to share, yours or someone else's? Reach out to us at Canadian Love Map on Instagram or Facebook. We'd love to hear your story.